Thank you for participating in this training module for React Health's cloud-based data sharing platform, React Health Connect. This module provides training for the dashboard in your React Health Connect DME account. In this dashboard training, we will show you how to use the new dashboard feature in React Health Connect. The dashboard is an efficient way to monitor your patient population in their initial 90-day compliance period. Using system-generated work items, you can quickly see which patients may require additional attention to achieve compliance. There are many new views inside of the dashboard that allow you to take a deeper dive into the patient's compliance progress. For the new dashboard, we partnered with Enso Data AI to build an algorithm that is applied to your patients in their first 90 days of therapy. This algorithm provides data on your patients in the dashboard to make managing your patients easier by providing you a way to manage by exception. The algorithm is built using 250 million nights of data from 147,000 different patients. Enso Data AI provides a priority score and generates work items based off your patient's therapy data that is downloaded every day. We will discuss how to use these work items, priority score, and the dashboard to effectively manage those patients requiring your help to meet their adherence requirements, and those patients who have achieved or not achieved their initial compliance requirements. The React Health Connect DME dashboard can be accessed by clicking on the dashboard link at the top of any page while logged in to your DME or equipment provider account, shown here. If you don't see the dashboard link, have your administrator reach out to your local React Health representative to request that this feature be enabled. After clicking the dashboard link, you will be taken to the dashboard. As you can see here, circled in red, the dashboard is currently displaying data for initial compliance and follow-ups. Ongoing compliance will be available in future releases. At the top of the page, we can see the default options that are selected when you enter the dashboard. The therapy start date will be automatically set to 120 days before the current date. The current date will be selected as the end date. Only active patients are being shown. You can change this date range, show both active and inactive patients, and show only patients assigned to you by editing these options. You can also use the filters option to filter the patients shown in the dashboard by location, group, or clinician. You will notice the patient groups above your patient list. Clicking on any of these headings will take you to the patient list or item list represented by the group. When first viewing the dashboard, pending compliance is selected by default. The numbers shown on the headers represent the number of patients or items in each group for the date range selected. Selecting a different date range will change these numbers to reflect the patients or items covered by your selected date range. We will go into more detail in each group a little later in our training. The patient list shown on the dashboard is, by default, sorted by priority. This priority number is generated by Enso Data AI and prioritizes your patients. You will see a priority number for each patient in the list, and that number will update with each new download from the patient's device. The numbers will range from 0 to 100. Patients with a priority score closer to 0 are recognized by Enso Data AI as more at risk of not achieving compliance, as determined by the algorithm, based off usage patterns, therapy parameters, and demographic data. Patients with a priority score closer to 100 are recognized as trending towards compliance and may not require as much attention as those with lower priority scores. Patients with a priority score of 100 have either met compliance, are not able to meet compliance, or have been determined by the algorithm to be too far into their 90-day compliance period without consistent usage to become compliant. After initial patient setup, you may see patients with NC in the priority column. This abbreviation stands for Not Calculated. This will be shown on new patients, as React Health Connect applies the Enso Data AI to the first few days of data as it is received from the device. The priority score allows you to focus your time and attention on those patients that need assistance in the form of an outreach. You can click on the priority column heading, and all column headings, to sort those columns in ascending or descending order. The Compliance Met column shows each patient's best percentage of compliance in any 30-day period, in the first 90 days of their compliance period until they meet compliance. The Days on Service column shows each patient's total number of days on service from their therapy start date to today's date. The Last Connection column shows the last time the patient's device has connected through a cellular connection and sent data to React Health Connect. In addition to sorting the columns shown, date range selection and patient status selection, there are other additional filters and options. The My Patients Only toggle switch, when activated, will only show those patients where the logged-in user is assigned as a clinician for that patient. Selecting the Filters option will allow you to set a priority range and a therapy date range to limit the number of patients you see on the list. Clicking and dragging the sliders left or right will edit the priority range shown in the patient list. More functionality will be added to the filters in upcoming software versions. Click the Apply button to activate your range selection. Clicking on the three dots will pop out an additional menu that will allow you to select which columns you view for your patient dashboard page and how many patients are viewed on each page. You can also export the current view to a CSV file. We will now discuss the patient groups and what each individual group represents. You can select each group by clicking on that group's box. We will first cover work items. We have selected work items. As you can see, the work items box turns blue, showing that we are viewing the work items section. Work items are generated by Enso Data AI and will show you patients that may require your attention above and beyond the AI-generated priority score. As you can see from the list, there are a variety of tasks associated with the patients that appear in this list. You can filter this list by work item type and also include those work items that exist for your patients in the current date range that have achieved compliance by using the Include Compliant Patients toggle. When working the work item list or any other patient list, you have the option of viewing that patient's compliance calendar and patient detail. You can do this by clicking on the patient's name. We will go into detail on this after covering the patient groups. Occasionally in the patient groups, you may see a symbol beside the patient's name. Hovering your mouse over the icon will provide an explanation of what that icon symbolizes. In this case, this patient does not have an active device assigned to their patient profile. In Work Items, Compliance Met and Compliance Not Met, you will have the three vertical dots beside each patient's name. This will allow you to mark the patient entry as reviewed or schedule a follow-up to this work item. When you mark a patient entry as reviewed, a pop-up will appear that allows you to enter a patient note. These notes are stored in the patient's profile and are visible to all internal and external users that have access to that patient's record. If a work item is dismissed but the issue persists, you will see the task reappear with the new parameters in a set number of days. Follow-up work items will appear in your follow-up list based off the schedule you select in the follow-up section. Clicking on Follow-up on top of the page will take you into the follow-ups you have entered for your patient tasks. These tasks are managed the same way you manage the work items under your work item list. These follow-ups that are scheduled will only appear under the follow-up list. These may also show under work items in a future release. Tasks will also automatically be dismissed if not managed or if the reason for the task is resolved. For example, if a patient has a high leak value for 3 of the last 5 days, but the leak value drops to normal levels in the following days, the task will resolve and will be shown in the closed tasks as resolved. This ensures that your work item list is fresh and doesn't include tasks that are no longer relevant. All tasks that have been reviewed, resolved, or have expired will be shown under the closed tasks in the patient pop-up window. The pending compliance selection will list all patients within the selected date range who have not yet met compliance but are within their 90-day compliance window. Managing these patients in addition to the work items can help you drive an increase in your compliance by helping those patients that need it the most. These pending compliance patients are sorted by priority score, with the most critical priority scores shown at the top of the list. The compliance met group shows you all patients within the selected date range that have achieved compliance. The day a patient hits compliance, they will be removed from the pending compliance list and moved to the compliance met list. The exclamation point in the triangle to the left of the patient's name signifies that this patient's compliance has not yet been marked as reviewed. This review can include the beginning of your post-compliance processes for each patient. By clicking the three dots, you can mark this patient's compliance as reviewed and add a note if applicable. You can also mark these patients as reviewed in bulk by selecting multiple checkboxes or using the top checkbox to select all patients on the page. Then, by clicking the three vertical dots by the top checkbox, you can mark all selected as reviewed. Once a patient's compliance has been marked as reviewed, the time of review is marked in the reviewed column. You can filter this list further using the filter, circled here in red. You can view those entries that are pending review, those that have been reviewed, or both pending and reviewed. Our last patient group is the compliance not met group. This shows your patients whose therapy start date was in your selected time range, and who did not meet compliance, just as we had in the compliance met selection. You can review these entries using the checkboxes. You can also use the filter to select those patient entries that are pending review, those that have been reviewed, or both pending and reviewed. By clicking on any patient's name, you can view additional details on that patient. These additional details include a compliance calendar, average therapy statistics, device information, and basic patient information, as well as patient notes and tasks. Let's take a look at the information this pop-up contains and how to navigate the information displayed. This is a view of the patient details that appear when you click on any patient's name. This data is updated on each device connection for the first 90 days. Viewing the patient information at the top of the screen, you can see the patient's name and patient ID, date of birth, phone number, and email address. On the next line we include priority. Because this patient has achieved compliance and is past the original 90 days, the priority section is blank. The therapy start day, device serial number, initial compliance calculation, or in this case, the compliance checkmark, the last connection that was received from the device, along with the connection type, and the patient's last day of usage are also shown. Take note that the patient name, device serial number, and initial compliance calculation are all clickable links. Clicking on the patient's name will take you to the patient's full profile in React Health Connect. Clicking on the compliance will show you the compliance information and dates for this patient, and give you the option to run a compliance report. Clicking on the device serial number will take you into an expanded view of the device information. We'll cover the device information in our next section. Moving down on the page, we see the therapy statistics for this patient in their initial 90-day compliance period. Averages will only be calculated for the days that have passed in the initial 90-day period. Further down the page, you can also view the patient's compliance calendar, circled here. This compliance calendar shows each day color-coded to represent the usage for that day for all days where React Health Connect has downloaded data. This data can be from wireless download, SD card download, or from a QR+ scan. Each day is color-coded representing that day's usage. Green represents a night with 4 or more hours of therapy usage. Red represents a night with less than 4 hours of usage. Gray represents a night with no data or no usage. A white shape with a red outline indicates that the device was powered on and the cellular modem called into React Health Connect, but no therapy usage was detected on the device. Hovering your mouse cursor over any day in the calendar will show you the usage detail, AHI, and leak detail for that day. Left-clicking on any day will show you the number of compliant days needed by that date to become compliant. Right-clicking on any usage date will allow you to pull up that day's usage detail graph. On the compliance calendar, the start and end date of the compliance period are shown as a diamond instead of the usual square. This allows you to quickly pick out the first and last day of compliance in the calendar. You can see this, circled here in red. The date the patient meets their initial compliance is shown as a circle. This allows you to quickly spot the date of compliance in the calendar. You can see this, circled here in blue. You can move backward and forward on the patient calendar using the arrows on the left and right of the summary pop-up. Shown here, circled in red. Above the compliance calendar, you can see we have other tabs in addition to the summary tab: Notes, Tasks, and Follow-ups. The Notes tab will show you all notes created for this patient. These notes can be created by any user, both inside and outside of your organization, that have access to this patient's record. You can also create a new note from the Note tab. The Tasks tab will show you all current and closed tasks for that patient. These tasks are a reflection of the tasks you saw under the work items in the main dashboard view. If this patient has a work item associated with their patient profile, you can view and manage the tasks from this tab. The Follow-ups tab will show you all follow-ups scheduled for this patient. As you can see here, under Follow-ups, you can manage these follow-ups just as you would manage a work item, by clicking the 3 vertical dots. By clicking Create Follow-up, you can create a follow-up that is not associated with a work item. You can select the follow-up action, or create a new action, set a due date for this follow-up, set the follow-up to automatically expire after a set period of days, and add a note. Once finished, clicking Create will schedule that follow-up in the patient record. Once you are finished working on this patient record, you can move from patient to patient in each of the patient lists, without having to close the detail pop-up, by clicking on the Next Patient arrow on the right, or the Previous Patient arrow on the left. Shown here circled in red. Thank you for your time and attention.